this together. But again, we are only in the beginning, and it's going to get a whole lot worse. Winds drastically change, and that surge happens even more quickly.
All right, so Jim, let's talk a little bit more about Rita and how high the surge could get here, all right? Because I looked at the Calcasieu River, which is right behind me. That is the water. We're going to continue to watch it rise, and don't worry, we can easily get to higher ground where we are located here and quickly get in and go up. So don't worry about us when it comes to that. Trust me, we're going to be okay with that. But I want to talk to you about Rita and the surge and what is forecast to give you some perspective. Now, we don't like to compare storms here, but the Calcasieu River at Saltwater Barrier, which I was told by a local, that observation site, you know, is just off in the distance there. The record is 13 feet from 1913. And the quote on the National Weather Service site says over half the city of Lake Charles was flooded. The forecast is 15.6 feet. The record where half the city was flooded was 13 feet. And Jim, Rita, this is going to shock everybody. Rita, which devastated Lake Charles, 9.43 feet, and they're forecasting 15.6.
Right. It kind of boggles the mind, Steph, when you think about how high that water is going to get. Almost doubling what we had certainly before with Rita. So in the 1913 hurricane, actually, but either way you slice it, you're talking about more water than you've ever seen. You're talking about water that's going to come into buildings. All right. So I hope you have a second floor when you're talking about a 10 to 20 foot storm surge. Most first floors are about 10 to 20 feet through here. So record-setting surge certainly very, very possible here. Steph, we are already on the front side of our casino here. We're at LeBaire, so we're right, next door to you. You can retreat to the front side. You got another place to go. We're just going to hunker down right into here for the evening. And of course, we're really going to see things go downhill in a hurry with this eye wall. It's going to, as I mentioned, coming ashore very quickly. We've already had some gusts to tropical storm force easily in Lake Charles, and that is only going up. There's buoys offshore that are gusting. There's already water rise that's going on here. And
sorry guys, I'm gonna try to get this set up here, so bear with me.
All over the Weather Channel. Essentially, the Google Maps, Google Earth, and overlaid the storm surge forecast on top of it. And so what Stephanie's talking about with that water rise, you can literally see total inundation. All right, it's interesting too, because where we're standing, we're pretty much at 45 feet above the sea level. So we're obviously not going to see water that high. But there are other areas on the backside of the hotel that are lower, like where Steph is. That's obviously right there on the lake. All right, we're going to see I-10 underwater. The National Weather Service in Lake Charles will see inundation around their weather office, and that's why they have evacuated their office, and they are letting the National Weather Service in Brownsville actually take over the responsibilities. Everybody out of harm's way there. I mean, obviously you got to practice what you preach, and that's exactly what they're doing. So all in all, again, things aren't too bad right now in terms of the wind, but they are expected to get a lot worse, certainly as these squalls and bands come in, and you can't rule out occasional tornado spin-ups too, Steph, which, as you know, are going to make things a lot worse as we go on through the night. That we are in a tornado watch until about 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, and that could easily be continued, certainly for some spots, especially to our north.
All right, so Jim, I want to bring in a hurricane expert, Dr. Knabb, to talk more about this. And Dr. Knabb, even if you just look at the wingspan of this thing, over 400 miles across, with tropical storm force winds, that eye, the diameter of the eye, around 35, 36 miles across. Look at the winds just picking up like this, and we are nowhere near the eye wall, the worst part of the storm. But Dr. Knabb, being a storm this big, how long will it take to wind down as it goes inland, and people that live in northern Louisiana, into Arkansas, places like that? What will they be feeling? Because this is not just a coastal issue.
No, it's going to take many hours for this to weaken below hurricane strength, and you're going to take hurricane force winds sustained inland about 100 miles. And even after that, and beyond that, the tropical storm force winds with hurricane force gusts, over land, Steph, the gusts are a lot stronger compared to the sustained than the gusts relative to the sustained over water. So they can remain very gusty over land. And in Rita, a lot of people died on the weaker side of the system in Texas from trees falling. So it's a very dangerous inland wind event.
And I want want to talk about the wind because Dr. Knabb, I have an anemometer here with me. And you know, right now, obviously this is not official observation, but where I'm standing, our winds are, you know, gusting around 20 miles an hour. So I want to give people some perspective on just how strong a wind is that's 150 miles an hour or 120. I think people really underestimate what a wind, if someone looks at this, they might say, oh, that's probably blowing at 40 miles an hour. But, you know, where I am, again, unofficial, Dr. Knabb, you know, we're gusting around that 20 mile an hour range.
Yeah, and it's going to be up and down for a little while longer, but the center of circulation, whether it passes right over you or very close to you, is about 5 hours away. And so that's when you would get your strong gust winds, probably on the eastern eye wall, but it will be going downhill very quickly in the next 2 or 3 hours as you get into the northern outer bands. But then when the eye wall comes in, you know, give it 3 to 4 hours, that northern eye wall, it will get really nasty really quickly. And I think, unfortunately, that this is going to take a path such that it pushes that water right up the Calcasieu River into Lake Charles.
All right, so that's where we are. So behind us is the Calcasieu River, and it goes all the way out to the Gulf of Mexico. Let's talk about that water rise, because that's something else that, you know, this doesn't come in like a tsunami, like a big wave. You know, that water goes up, but it does go up very quickly. And I think that's what really catches a lot of people off guard, Dr. Knabb, is just how quickly that surge is going to be pushing up.
Yes, and it will start off a little gradual, but then in the last hour or so, it will come up very, very quickly. Now, it'll be a different kind of water rise in Lake Charles than it will be with the storm surge event closer to the Gulf of Mexico coastline, where you would have the open exposure to the full force of the battering waves. And that's where, down in Cameron, for example, you could have entire buildings wiped off their foundations. That's less likely to happen in Lake Charles, but still very likely to have many structures inundated. You know, we had 6 feet of water in downtown Lake Charles in Rita. There's every possibility that you have more than that this time around.
And, you know, the fact that not only you're going to have the surge, you're going to have the wind, and that we have never seen a Cat 4, Cat 5 in this part of Louisiana. This is going to be historic. You know, the name will be retired with that coming in here. You know, and we haven't seen anything this strong in Louisiana in 64 years or something. Going back to the 1800s was the last time we had a storm this strong in Louisiana.
Likes of Katrina and Rita and so forth, you know, when you go by category, according to the maximum sustained winds, we haven't had something this strong. Now, Rita was a little bit weaker by the maximum sustained winds, but it was a little bit larger. And so in some places, we might have comparable storm surge this time as compared to Rita, but I think with how strong Laura is, especially in Cameron Parish and up the Calcasieu River and up into Lake Charles, some places will get worse storm surge. So it depends on where you are. Every storm is very, very different. And also, Steph, the other thing that is working against us here is that the timing of high tide in the 4, 5, 6 a.m. time frame where you are is also going to be about the time when the strongest onshore push will be realized.
Yeah, just after 6 a.m. is when we have that high tide, and then the sun will be rising about 6:46 tomorrow morning, and unfortunately, it'll look a lot different. Dr. Knabb, how about that rainfall? It is moving fast. That is the one silver lining, is this is not going to be a Harvey with 20, 30, 40 inches of rain, but we're still going to see some spots with up to perhaps 18 inches of rain.
Now, there is a connection between the heavy rainfall and the storm surge. Yes, it is good that it's moving along. Now, it's not zipping along at 20-something miles an hour like it was in the Caribbean. It's down to 15. So it's, you know, maybe a little bit faster than average, but it's still a large enough and strong enough system that the rain rates are going to be incredible. And you could easily get a foot of rain near the coast and inland. Now, here's the complicating factor, Steph. We're going to have tremendous rainfall in southwestern Louisiana and extreme eastern Texas. That water is going to be trying to drain into the Gulf of Mexico, and the storm surge that's not going to drain very quickly is going to back that up. So when you look at how high the water could get through the storm surge, it could actually be higher than that, because that doesn't take into account inundation from excessive rainfall.
All right, Dr. Knabb, we'll check back in with you in a little bit. I want to go to Jim, though. And Jim, I want to to put in perspective, you know, what does 10, 15 feet of surge mean? A one-story building is around, you know, 10 to, so we're talking literally the height up to people's roofs, maybe over some people's roofs at 10 to 15 feet. That's a one-story building.
Yeah, and Steph, you saw the same story I did about the folks. About 150 people decided to stay behind in Cameron Parish. The emergency manager incredibly worried about those folks. They refused to leave, but you know what? It's a free country, ladies and gentlemen. You got to do what you got to do, right? But that isn't necessarily saying that's the smartest move out there, especially given the fact that we know how high the water is going to get with this, and the waves on top of that make it a horrifying experience. Like you mentioned, a one-story building is about 10 feet, all right? So now you're on your roof at 15 and hoping the waves don't knock you off the roof into the storm surge. That's what we're talking about here, and that's not even sugarcoating it at all. And you're gonna, and if the 150-mile-per-hour winds don't knock you off the roof, then maybe the storm surge and the waves will. There's just a multitude of hazards. And the other thing that really upsets me about this is the fact that now you potentially put first responders in harm's way. You know, we give you all the information we can to get you out of harm's way, get you prepared for the storm. And when you decide to do things on your own and things don't go exactly the way you thought that they'd go, now you put first responders out there. And they have families, and they have livelihoods, and we need those people. They're a part of this whole thing that makes the world go around. So just keep that in mind, all right, when you think about when emergency managers and whatnot ask you to evacuate. That's exactly what that's for, to keep you safe, to keep them from not having to go in and get you. 937 millibars. This is really interesting when you think about it, because all the historic hurricanes in Louisiana history there's only, well, Rita was 937 millibars, and Katrina was stronger than that at, I think, 915 millibars. So it is up there with the elite, if you will, in terms of its rate. Interestingly enough, too, the wind's only 115 miles an hour. It's a bigger storm, all right? This one's a little bit tighter, and so the winds are a lot stronger at 150 miles per hour. Now, let's take a look. Let's look at some real-time data here. I want to look at the radar. One of the beautiful things about the radar is it can look up and tell us a lot of things. Are there hail, is there hail with storms? Is there, what are the rainfall rates? What is the wind doing at different levels of the altitude where the beam is? And the radar in Lake Charles right now, of course, as most Doppler radars are at a half a degree beam width. So that's the angle the beam goes up. So as we look out now into the eye wall, you can see what kind of wind we got here. So this is about 6,000 feet up, I believe, right, Jeff? And we're talking about, winds here that are well over 140 miles an hour. Now, those don't always get all the way down toward the surface. We know that. There's a stabilizing factor before you get to the ground that kind of dampens, if you will, that wind. There's friction and things like that as well. But still, that gives you an idea of what is in that eye wall. And once it gets on the coast and once it moves up into Lake Charles, now you're talking about very, very high likelihood of loss of power here. We may even lose cell phone service. And that's another thing. Steph and I will come with you as long as we can tonight, given the fact that we will potentially could lose cell towers. And right now, cell is what's getting us out there on the air, both in the way that you can hear us and also see us in through here. Now, right now in Lake Charles, the winds are out of the northeast. So I'm a little blocked. What I've played for with my crew is, A, to be above the water. That's first and foremost to start with. And then secondly, are to see the wind start coming around a little bit more easterly and southeasterly as the center begins to go to the west and we get into the eye wall. So that's going to present a whole different other issue here in terms of the wind. It's going to be howling through here. But we obviously can retreat and get out of harm's way, which we will do if it gets that bad. Because if you remember what we went through with Isaias in Wilmington and Wrightsville Beach, even at 85 to 90 miles per hour, it was very, very difficult to stand up and through here. Plus, you've got a lot of trees around and a lot of roof shingles. So there's going to be flying debris everywhere out through here. So again, we'll do our best to show you what goes on. I had somebody ask me one time, Jim, why do you stand out in these things? I said, honestly, because if I'm going to ask somebody to leave or be a part of that equation with the Weather Enterprise, I want to at least be able to take people through it and show them why they left. All right, to show them, just how strong the storm can be and the different aspects of it. So that's really it. Otherwise, guys, we will continue to watch Laura for you on final approach. There'll be a wobble this way. There'll be a wobble that way. But eventually, it is coming toward southwest Louisiana in what is going to be one of the strongest hurricanes to ever hit this area, if not more than likely the strongest, with record-setting storm surge and water rise.
With Domino's $5.99 mix and match deal, you can feed a family.
Live on the ground right now. It's coming down.
The Weather Channel. Currently in our area, 78 degrees under fair skies. Tonight, clear to partly cloudy, low 73. Winds light and variable. Thursday, mostly cloudy skies, high 92. Winds west-southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Thursday night, overcast, low 75. Winds southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Make sure you like and comment. Make sure you share the video and tell all your friends.
And welcome back to our continuing coverage of Hurricane Laura. Very dangerous Category 4. It's going to come in as a Category 4. No question about that. It's just how far inland and how high is that water going to get? That is something that's on everybody's mind. As a matter of fact, I just got a text from my good buddy Rob Macedo, who's a meteorologist up in New England, and he works obviously with the Skywarn Spotter Group up on these are all amateur operators. And when the cell phones go down, by the way, guys, you're going to wish you knew an amateur radio operator, okay? Because they're the ones that get out. But here's the deal. He talked about something from social media here. Homeowner who was watching his home camera saw water across Brant Street in Holly Beach, which is in cam repairs, as we talked about before they lost power and the camera went out. So here comes the water. It's already coming in. We've seen water rise already close to 3 feet, I think, at some spots. Calcasieu Pass now sustained 46, gusting at 58 miles per hour there, gust to 63 as well with that as well. That was the peak gust. And no question about it here, guys. This thing's going to come in and things are going to go downhill in a hurry. All right, speaking of going downhill, let's see how things are doing in Lake Charles. Again, I'm at LaBerge, so we're back here, near the, across the lake from the oil refineries, which, by the way, they evacuated. I was talking to a couple of gentlemen who were in the LaBerge, and they were saying, hey, we didn't even get evacuated for Rita. So they're very concerned about the refineries back there. All right, they've got them evacuated as well out of there. So that's great news. We don't want anybody, obviously, in that area, but obviously bad news for the refineries because you're talking about a heck of a water rise over there. But here's Pete. He's at Lake Charles with his camera. I think he said he's got a max gust now of about 38 miles per hour. So with that in mind, certainly we know even where he is, things are going to go downhill. And where he is, water could be up to the side of his car. Now, he's not going to be there when that happens, all right, because we know better. We know to get him back here. But we just want to show you what it's like out there right now. It's been raining now pretty steadily. We've had tropical storm force gusts in Lake Charles. We're still out of the northeast, so that's why we're a little blocked here from the wind, if you will. But when those winds come a little bit more southerly, which they will with the center going to our west, we'll get the full brunt of that here in the front of LaBerge, which I can't thank these guys enough. They've gone out of their way to help us out, so they've been wonderful. And I hope, everybody is hunkered down. Everybody has heeded the advisories to get out of harm's way when they could. You can hear it when we talked to John Bell Edwards, the governor, earlier today. He was very concerned about the people that stayed behind, and I'm sure he just shook his head when he heard the fact that 150 people actually stayed behind in Cameron, Louisiana. So that's the big deal there. Again, just light rain here. It was actually a little dry, believe it or not. The grounds were a little dry in through here, so they could use a little rain, but we don't need 10, 15 inches of rain. Because, as Dr. Knabb was talking about earlier, the fact that you could easily get that kind of water, which is trying to get to the Gulf of Mexico, at the same time the surge and the wind are pushing in and pushing it up, that means we could even have a higher water rise as a result of that rainfall. So all the rain gets added to the equation here. Unfortunately, that's just not added to the inundation equation. All right, Steph, let's talk a little bit about this. So I talked about where we are in the front of LaBerge, and we're pretty high up into here. Tell everybody where you are and your plan, if you will, as that water starts to come up where you are, I think, behind the Golden Nugget, and then up toward the front.
So Jim and I, we could walk to each other. But in two separate hotels that are next to each other. I'm on the back side of the hotel. The Calcasieu River is behind me, and I'm watching that, okay? Because we're expecting that surge to be about 9 feet here. And Jim, we do have very easy access to go right up. There's stairs right in front of me. My crew is already elevated, as a matter of fact. And so we're going to watch that water behind me with a very keen eye, and we will be able to get in and get higher with no problem here. I am more exposed than Jim is right now to the elements. He's a little protected by his hotel, and I'm right on the water, and so I'm very exposed. I've been taking wind observations. The highest gusts I've gotten so far is 33 miles an hour. Now, again, of course, these are unofficial. This is just with my handheld anemometer.
Is that okay,
but I will continue to take observations and see just how high the winds are going to get for us. And I want to talk about how rare it is to see a hurricane like this in this part of Louisiana. There's never been a Cat 4, Cat 5 hurricane make landfall in this part of Louisiana. In fact, there's only been 3 Category 4s to make landfall in Louisiana. 2 of those in the 1900s. The other was Betsy in 1965. You might remember that, but that was towards the mouth of the Mississippi and then up through central Louisiana. So this might be only the 4th time in history we have a Category 4 making landfall in Louisiana, and the first time it's in this area. And Jim, a lot of people are talking about, oh, will it become a Cat 5? Will it become a Cat 5? Having that conversation. The truth of the matter is it does not matter. That's just going to be for historical data. We're at 150. A Cat 5 is 157. That is really not going to make a huge difference in the type of damage that we will get with a landfalling strong Cat 4 or a weak Cat 5. I might have lost Jim. I might have lost him. We can go to Dr. Nab if I've lost. I think.
No, we're still here. We're still here.
Oh, that's all right.
I was just wondering if you were going to take us to break because we only had a little bit of time, so I was talking to the producer. So if you asked me something, go ahead and do it again.
I was just saying, Jim, strong Cat 4 to a weak Cat 5, we're only going to make that differential for the record books. It's not going to matter the type of damage you get with 150 versus 157.
Yeah, not much at all in terms of that. Obviously it's status, and remember there's always reanalysis potentially after the fact where the Hurricane Center goes back in. And by the way, if you want a little good read tonight, go back and read the National Hurricane Center's description of what happened with Rita. Their full report on that. Our very own Dr. Rick Nab was a part of 3 meteorologists who wrote that.
Daddy, what's...
All right, guys, let me show you the difference between being on the northeast side of the hotel and being on this side where we're a little protected right now. Charles Peak back there. This is where we were this morning, right on the water, okay, and across the water, of course, are the refineries. But you're looking over to where Steph is at the Nugget, okay? That's how far away we are from each other, and that's why her shot, she's dealing with all that on the back side of this thing with those northeast winds right now. So no question, that's where it is obviously rougher, and it is not a true testament of what we're getting. So let's actually get an idea what that looks like being in it. Steph, we just showed Peak shot. He's looking over toward you right now. Looks like you're getting hammered back there pretty good. And we're not even remotely into the teeth of this yet.
Yeah, No, we're not at all, Jim. I mean, we're still several hours. And look what's happened. Just from our last live shot until now, I'm trying to get a wind observation. I'll be doing these. The highest I've seen so far is 33. But I've got to tell you, you can see the sheets of rain, whipping off the building with the wind. Behind me is the Calcasieu River, and you see that water, and the waves are starting to come up here. And we're watching this very closely, and I don't want anyone to be concerned about us. My crew is actually already elevated. They are up from where I am standing, and I can easily run up these stairs, and we can get higher, and that's what we anticipate doing once that water is going to push in with this storm. And the winds, they've died down a little bit now, but wait until we get into that eye wall. I will not be able to stand out here. It'll be absolutely impossible. So things are going to continue to deteriorate through the night. Now is the time that everyone needs to be safe. For those people that stayed behind, hopefully that they have, axes and whatnot to get out on their roofs. We saw that happen. Rita, Katrina, where people were stuck and had to chop through and get out onto their roofs because the first responders will not go out in the weather once you get those winds sustained. I've heard varying numbers from first responders, but anywhere from 40, 45, 50 miles an hour, they will not be able to go out in the wind. Now imagine how far we are. I mean, the center of this circulation is about 50 miles offshore. Now, as the crow flies, we're about 30 miles to the Gulf of Mexico as the crow flies, okay? If you go down, the river and the lake system, that is here. And this system is about the center of it, about 50 miles offshore. Now, what's you're going to see happen for our live shots is we're going to get into that eye wall. That is the worst part of it. Conditions will go down quickly. They will be intense, and we will broadcast as long as it's safe to do so, and we can get a signal out. And then you'll get that eye to come in. Whoever gets in that eye will have calm conditions, incredibly calm conditions. But here's what you have to worry about. If you get that northern eye wall, that starts to weaken everything, and of course will rip some stuff apart. And then that second eye wall will be even worse, because that will then have everything flying twice as bad because you've weakened everything with that first eye wall. And even just this rain coming now, pelting my face, it feels like someone is taking a bunch of rocks and throwing it at my face. That's how bad it stings with these strong winds. This will be historic, seeing a Category 4 making landfall. By the way, I-10 inundated with Rita. Rita's water got up to 9.43 feet. The forecast for this one, 15.6 feet. And portions of I-10 are shut down from the Texas-Louisiana border and the Atchafalaya Basin heading this way. So, Jim, hopefully nobody is traveling during this storm. But the problem is that water, it could stay up for quite a while. It's not just going to go up and then go right back down.
Steph, let me ask you, Steph, you brought up a great point earlier about people that stayed behind and may have a one-story home that they have to get on their roof of because the water is so high. I want you to show me one person, just one, who can hold on with 100